For decades, the Supreme Court has allowed colleges to consider race in admissions in order to promote diversity. Now, 2 cases are challenging this practice. Here, we explore the debate over affirmative action and the law that has informed and often transformed its use.
We're here at the center of Bentonville Square. There used to be a Confederate statue housed here. I was involved in the activism and the protesting surrounding removal of the monument. It was a really fraught experience, but now it's been gone for a couple years and there's a beautiful sunflower bed that's replaced it.
Muskan Arshad became a social activist due to her own challenges growing up Asian American in Arkansas. So in 2021, when she applied to college, she decided to write about how race had often defined her experiences.
When I was growing up, there was always this inherent feeling that being brown, being Indian, wasn't good enough. I think the youngest time I experienced that was when I was in class and we were doing like an activity that involved everyone holding hands and just no one would touch me. Just being like 7 years old and hearing and seeing your peers like not be able to touch you just because of your skin color and thinking you're just inherently dirty in some way, that was just an extremely hurtful moment. And I think just was the first instance of many that really cemented the fact that being brown, being Indian, being Asian American wasn't an accepted thing. My race was just essential in every part of my application and who I am. Without mentioning my race and how it was part of my life, I don't think I could have painted a full picture of who I was and maybe not even gotten into Harvard.
It's the kind of history that universities like Harvard have long given special attention to because of Supreme Court decisions dating back to the 1970s, solidifying the idea that colleges can consider race in admissions in order to promote diversity. But 2 lawsuits now before the court are challenging this idea.
Some big developments out of the Supreme Court today. The justice announced they will reconsider the issue of race-based affirmative action in college admissions.
The man behind this Supreme Court fight is Edward Blum, a conservative activist who spent decades seeding lawsuits to challenge affirmative action practices.
Kids check which race they belong to, and then they're judged either affirmatively or negatively by competitive admissions offices based upon the box they check. That is inherently unfair. That is inherently polarizing and inherently illegal and unconstitutional.
Blum lost an earlier case in which he represented a white student who challenged affirmative action at the University of Texas. But his current lawsuits against Harvard and the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill have drawn attention for a more unusual argument, that universities are using affirmative action policies to discriminate against one minority group, Asian Americans.
Harvard systematically raises the bar for Asian Americans and systematically lowers it for whites, African Americans, and Hispanics. We allege that Harvard has a quota.
That possibility has long worried some in the Asian American community, but it was one student's fight that made it front-page news, attracting Blum to the cause.
Michael Wang did everything he could to get into Harvard.
Which actually sang at Obama's inauguration. Multiple speech and debate awards, piano competitions.
But in 2013, the California high school student was rejected by his dream school, even as he says students with lower grades got in.
I spent middle school, high school really grinding away, taking as many AP classes as I could, participating in as many extracurriculars as humanly possible, really just trying to put together the best resume for these Ivy Leagues and all these top-tier institutions. Ultimately, when I got my decisions, they weren't what I expected. So I wrote to their admissions offices by email and I asked them, can you tell me how you utilize race as a factor of admission? All I wanted to see was, is me being Asian American something that disadvantaged me in my application? The answers I received back from those admissions offices were unsatisfactory. And so that's where, in 2013, I decided to file my 3 complaints, and that's how I got started on this whole road.